Ready to get going here.
Lisa, could you do me a favor and monitor chat?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Alan is probably going to join us a little late today because he's in another meeting. But we'll get started with roll call. And I know that we do have one person absent today. Jeremy Musgrove will not be with us, but we'll get started with roll call. So first, James Martinez,
I am here.
Monica Atridge,
Here.
Keith Becker,
Here.
Sarah Dorman. Okay, so we're missing Sarah. Jeremy Musgrove is out today. We just heard from him. How about Stephanie Birdwell
Present.
and Rachel?
Present.
Okay, well, it looks like we do have a quorum today, and we are ready to get started when you are, Jamie.
You bet, folks. It's good to see everybody here. The protocol for the meeting, we're probably all pros about it now, but I have to alert you, for those of you that didn't hear, for some reason, there are some of us that don't have access to the chat. I can see the participants, but I can't actually type anything in chat. So Lisa has agreed to monitor chat for me. If you wish to speak during the meeting, please enter your wishes in chat, and we will call on you in the order that you appear in chat. We also ask that you keep your microphone and your camera on mute when not in use. And with that, we will move down on the agenda to item number 4. I'm seeing Monica has her hand raised.
Thanks. Excuse me. Thanks, Jamie. Does anybody have chat? I don't have it either.
I have it.
I do.
Oh, okay. Aren't you guys lucky?
I guess it's just the old timers that don't have it.
So I will be monitoring the chat. Monica, this is Lisa. I'm sorry, you guys, I should be on camera. Here we go. So I will be monitoring the chat. And just briefly, I wanted to introduce, we have a new HR generalist for the Human Resource Department. Her name is Sarah, and she will be on with us today, just listening in to our commission. Glad to have her as a part of our team. We've been without an HR generalist for compliance and training and development for a while. So she just recently joined our team a couple of weeks ago.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here.
Welcome, Sarah. We're happy to have you, and congratulations on your new appointment.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with you. So next we have public participation. Do we have any public participation? Hearing no public participation, we will move down on the agenda to item number 5. This is informational items to and from Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living members. So if you have informational items, don't be shy, speak out. Keith, let us know how Pickin' in the Pines went.
Picking in the Pines was fabulous, as it always is. We had a full house on Friday, full house on Saturday, and Sunday was almost full. And it was a great time for all.
Awesome. I wish I could have been there. I really enjoy those events. And I do see that Martin Ince has his hand raised. So you have the floor, Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if this is the right time in the meeting or not, but I'll go ahead. I just wanted to give the commission an update on the Buffalo Park accessibility improvements.
Oh,
And
fantastic. I'm excited.
I chatted with Amy Hagan this morning, who is the parks manager. And her information is that they have about a half mile of the trail completed with new material that's more accessible for wheelchairs. They're working today and tomorrow to get more of the trail completed. They fixed all the locations around the trail where the trail's been washed out. It usually causes kind of rivulets in the trail that make it difficult to get around. And they're also working with a local designer on the accessible parking spaces at the entryway to the park. I think for next time, we'll probably have, I know they're working also on the new equipment that is based on principles of universal design. So I think there are 18 different exercise stations around that 2-mile loop. And I think 6 or more of them will be replaced with universal design stations. And the other 12 will have things like railroad ties removed and a better surface material to make them more accessible. So that's all she wrote. I can try to answer any questions from the group if there are any.
Do we have any questions for Martin? And I, for one, folks, I'm super excited about this. This is a project that's been at least 5 years in the making, right, Martin?
At least 5 years, yep.
So super excited to see it getting off the ground and coming to fruition. And thank you very much, Martin, for the update and for spearheading this for the commission. And I do see Russ has his hand raised. Take it away, Russ.
And Martin, it's good. This is Russ. Martin, it's good to see you. I'm now a liaison with the community of practice transition team. So I wanted to make sure my notes were right. So Martin, about half a mile of the trail is now using that crushed aggregate, right?
Yes, that's right.
And then how much more of the trail will be using that?
The entire 2-mile loop. Ultimately.
The entire 2-mile loop, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then also there's a part of the Arizona Trail that goes kind of north-south and cuts the loop
Yes.
more or less in half, and that will be done as well.
That's the one that goes right down the middle, right?
Right down the middle, yep.
And I'm going to call that the middle trail. And then I heard you talk about they're working on the redesign of the parking spaces, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then 6 of the exercise spaces or stops are completely being redone with adaptable equipment, right?
Yes.
And then 12 of them are being remodeled with the ties being removed and a different bottom substance.
Correct. And Russell, I'll get to the details on those last 2. Amy didn't include it in her update, but I know that's what they've been working on.
Excellent.
And that material now I think are wood chips, and I think I don't know what's going to go there in its place, but I know they had talked about making something that was usable by wheelchairs.
And then Martin, is there any plans in place with regards to actual working on the foots?
How do you mean? You mean beyond just the new surface material?
Yeah, and like on any of the other foots trails.
Oh, not specifically, but I know they when they resurface trails as part of their ongoing maintenance, they're using the new material. We'll have to find out like how exactly that works and which trails are doing and how many they do per year. But beyond that, really nothing formal. So it's probably, since this one is pretty well underway, maybe it's time for the commission to start thinking about what we do next.
You bet, my friend. We will definitely do that.
And and I would only, with Caitlin, is out on all those trails. So I know when I was on the commission, we reported to the council about what might be able to be done to those trails, at least some of the trails, to make them more accessible too.
Yes, I think we can go back to that kind of that list of things that Caitlin and the group generated at that point, and kind of see what our next opportunities are, what would make a good project, what would be most impactful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, thank you for the update, Martin. And any other updates from Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living members?
Well, it's not really an update, but I am noticing that I'm listed and you are listed as guest, and maybe that's why we don't have chat.
That could be an issue, yeah. This is the first time that I've come into Microsoft Teams and not had access to chat. So let's investigate that further. Next, we are moving on to staff participation, item number 6 on our agenda, and we have an update from Lisa.
Okay, thank you all. I'll be brief. Just letting you know that we are still diligently working on the hybrid model, which I talked about in the previous meeting. Again, just trying to get it to the conference room here at City Hall or one of the other rooms, working around the schedule that has already been inundated with a lot of other people using those rooms. So we are still working on it. Hopefully moving forward, we'll have a definitive, yes, we can schedule something at the top of next year. But for now, we'll keep our virtual model going and we'll keep moving forward with that progress.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm really excited to have that possibility of the hybrid where some of us can meet virtually, some of us can meet in person if we so choose. It's been a long time, so I'm really looking forward to that opportunity. Next, we have an update from Estella Hollander with Mountain Line.
Hello, thank you, Jamie. Hi, everyone. Estella Hollander. I'm the mobility planner with Mountain Line and the transportation liaison. So I have an update regarding the last coordinated mobility council meeting, which was on August 26th, which I think a few of you were able to attend, which is great. And this meeting really focused on brainstorming either new or kind of reinforcing transportation challenges for older adults and people with disabilities, as well as kind of strategize on some new strategies that should be put into a coordinated plan, which this is a plan that is partnership with Mountain Line and Metro Plan and is developed kind of every 4 years, but then minor updates every year. And so we're working on a major update this year. And so just wanted to bring attention a few of the challenges that were brought up in the group just to kind of keep you all updated. There were additional ones mentioned, but these were just a few that kind of rose to the top and were mentioned multiple times. So the first one is transportation services for youth, specifically like CCC and NAU connections between the colleges. And so these include like safety concerns with like the lighting and the blue phones that are throughout, but as well as I guess there's quite a few CCC and NAU students that kind of go between the two campuses. There's not a great connection between those two universities or two schools. Railroad tracks and mobility issues for wheelchairs with them, trying to cross the railroad tracks. Bus stop access and just overall kind of neighborhood accessibility. So whether that is just a lack of lighting or a lack of sidewalks or even the quality of sidewalks, that also includes like snow removal, that kind of thing. Availability of wheelchair accessible vehicles with Ubers and taxis specifically. the integrity of sidewalks and lighting. So especially it was also mentioned like with the sandbags and flood related barriers, but also just kind of significant cracks or other issues with sidewalks that make it challenging if someone does have mobility challenges. And then also just challenges for non-paratransit qualified people, but who may have some sort of disability, but may not fully qualify for paratransit. There's kind of that gap there. So those were just a few. There's definitely there's an exhaustive list that will be incorporated into the plan, but those are just a few that I wanted to share. So the next steps is we're gonna kind of look at those different challenges as well as compare with our existing strategies and see if maybe new strategies need to be developed, or kind of see if we need to reword some of the existing strategies to make sure we incorporate the various issues that were brought up. And then our next meeting is in November. So we'll work on kind of prioritizing all the different strategies and then seek approval from the Coordinated Mobility Council in February. So those are just a few updates from our last meeting. That's it for me.
Thank you so much for that update, Estella, and for being here. I'd like to say that I'm honored to be a part of that discussion and process myself as the chair of the Coordinated Mobility Council. So thank you again.
Excellent, thank you.
Any questions for Estella, folks? Okay, not seeing any questions. So next we have student liaison from Hajoni, Michelle Eisenberg.
Thank you. Actually, it's Russ. Russ is here, so Russ can fill everybody in.
Yes, I can. Thanks for having me, folks. I have a few things to report on. First, Coconino Community College is hosting a community career fair at their Lone Tree campus, and that is on October 5th from 11 to 2 p.m. So again, on the Lone Tree campus at the Coconino Community College, there is a community career fair on October 5th from 11 to 2 p.m. And then since Jeremy is not able to be here today, Jeremy reported to us that NAU, the NAU Commission on Disability Access and Design, and I'm not sure if I'm naming that right. Stephanie, you probably could correct me on that. But that Commission on Access and Design is hosting an information fair at the NAU Union on October 11th. And I believe that's between 11:30 and 2:30 p.m. So information fair being presented by the Commission on Disability Access and Design, October 11th between 11:30 and 2:30 p.m. I can also report that High Country Adaptive Sports is looking for volunteers. And if you're interested in volunteering with them, and they provide outdoor experiences in an accessible way for folks who have challenges. So, but Jeremy would be the person to contact if you're interested in volunteering with them. And I can also report that Raising Special Kids has initiated their parent training for the fall. And for more information about that, look at the Raising Special Kids website. And then specifically from the Community of Practice Transition Team, the team is looking at holding, and I think this is like the 10th or 11th Youth Transition Fair, but that will be happening on October 28th between 9 and 12 p.m. So between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. And with that and that's at Coconino Community College. So the Youth Transition Fair will be on October 28th between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. at Coconino Community College. I think we're going to have a fabulous guest speaker there.
And I'm here to confirm that that is a yes.
Excellent. And so Jamie Martinez, Mr. Jamie Martinez, is going to be our keynote speaker. And I'm kind of proud of that, Jamie. So good job with that. And then we're going to have breakout rooms, and we'll have folks from businesses in town and agencies and schools. And in the breakout rooms, we'll be talking about transitioning to adult life, and all that entails. And again, the youth transit. Oh, and we're looking for other people who are interested in guest speaking as well. And then we're also looking for vendors. We're looking at probably 15 vendors who'd be like businesses in town and agencies in town who would actually start off the fair by distributing their goods around at their tables. So, but again, that's Youth Transition Fair is October 28th between 9 and 12. And y'all are welcome at Coconino Community College. Thank you, Mr.
Oh, you're welcome, Russ. I'm really glad that you're here with us. And I just want to say how honored I am to have been selected as the keynote speaker. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Russ.
And Jamie, weren't you the keynote speaker at our first transition fair?
I think the very first one.
Like 10, 12 years ago or something?
So it's coming back around full circle.
Thank you, Jamie.
Really honored to do this. Just let me know what topics you would like to have covered.
For sure we will.
Perfect. And next on our agenda, we have item number 7, the approval of the minutes from August 23rd, 2022. So
Jamie,
before
we get there, it looks like Rachel has her hand up.
Oh, sure. I see that now. Go ahead, Rachel.
Hi, Russ, this is more, I guess, directed to you in reference to the vendors. And maybe I just don't quite understand what happens with this stuff that's going on at CCC, but would it be a good idea to have maybe 1 or 2 of us commission members there to possibly answer questions from students?
I think that would be wonderful, actually, for sure. So, and you know, with the vendors, there'll be tables kind of set up in kind of a circle or in a rectangle, going around like the lobby area of CCC. And then, other like businesses will be there and the military will be there passing out their bling and all that kind of stuff. But we would absolutely love to have a commissioner or 2 there.
Jamie, do we have like a table? Let me get my words together. Something that we could put on the table that would represent us and then have maybe some pamphlets or something, or, a means. I'm shocked. I've been on this committee for, I think, 4 months. And as I'm going around and talking to people about what we do, nobody's heard of us.
And a big part of that may be the fact that we changed our name. And so they may be familiar with us as the Disability Awareness Commission. So we kind of have to get out there and reintroduce ourselves, as you will, as the Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living.
I think that that's something that if I can get the resources, that I would probably be willing to go to CCC and maybe NAU, just to be able to to start talking about the commission and what we do.
That would be wonderful. And if memory serves right, I do believe that we had a banner somewhere at City Hall, but I do not know where that's located currently.
Any idea who would know?
Lisa, could you investigate that perchance?
Yes, I can. I was actually getting ready to say I can look into it and find out where that banner is and get back with you guys as soon as possible on that. Jamie, I'll send you an email if I do locate it.
That would be fantastic.
Will you CC me on that email as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, do you know if we have any, I call them gimmies. Do you know if we have any gimmies that I can give away that day?
Not off the top of my head, but I can definitely look into it.
Okay. And then Russ, will you do me a favor and send me an email with all the information? I'm going to have to arrange transportation because I'm in a wheelchair as well. And then that way I can get working on it. And then lastly, are there any other commission members that would like to join me that day?
I have to double check my calendar, but I think I could definitely, I think that would be something I would like to go to. This is Sarah, by the way.
Thank you, Sarah.
Fantastic, Sarah, and thank you, Rachel, as well. And then, of
And,
course,
I actually work at the community college, but I am working in IT, so I'm like really, really busy and may not be able to spend much time, but I will definitely come out and stop by and hang out for a little while.
Great.
fantastic, folks.
That was Keith Becker, and Russ has his hand up.
Yes, Russ, go ahead.
And Jamie and Rachel, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And we actually literally, I left my previous meeting to come to this meeting with Michelle, and our subcommittee was looking at putting together our flyer. So as soon as I get that flyer, I will, and I don't know if I know how to reach you actually, Rachel. What's the best way for me to get information to Rachel, Jamie?
Email it to me, and then I will make sure that she gets it.
Email flyer to Jamie. And then Miss Birdwell, we were hoping that you would attend the transition fair because one of us is supposed to be reaching out to you about being a breakout room speaker. Just kind of letting you know.
All right. And so let me pull my calendar up here. You said this is October 28th.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I'm not in the office that day this year. I am out. So with a little more planning, I would be happy to be a part of this event.
Sure.
That's what I was getting ready to say. I was getting ready to raise my hand. NAU would love to be involved in the Youth Transition Fair.
So Stephanie, who should we reach out to?
I know that Sean, has kind of been the other person who's kind of done that sometimes. You're welcome to reach out just to the front office and let them know that you guys are having a community event and are interested in having a DR representative from NAU give a presentation, and then that will get passed on to our assistant director and she'll open that up to people who are available on that day.
Okay.
Do you want our phone number for the front office?
I'd rather have your email.
Her email is Elizabeth Pfeiffer, Piffer,
at nau.edu.
Right, and that's our assistant director who would then reach out to other people to see who might be available.
And that's Elizabeth Pfeiffer. Okay, sounds good.
Yep, so you can tell her that you and I talked about it and that I mentioned that I'm not available that day.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, thank you. I'm sorry I can't be there this year. I like that event. I would love to be involved in it again.
But we'll miss you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commission, for being so active and willing to participate. And with that, we are going to move down on the agenda to the approval of minutes from August 23rd, 2022. If you need a moment to review and reflect on those minutes, please do so. And then once you're done reviewing, if someone wants to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes. This is Stephanie, by the way.
I'll second. I second. It's Rachel.
Okay, so first motion is Stephanie and second is Rachel. So all of those in favor of the approval of the minutes from August 23rd, 2022, signify by saying yay.
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 All of those opposed, signify by saying nay. Hearing no nay, the yeas have it. The approval of the minutes from August 23rd, 2022 moves forward. Okay, and then item number 8 on our agenda. I wanted to double check this because I know that's right in the middle of Thanksgiving week. It shows that our November meeting is November 22nd, 2022. Will we have people here on November 22nd?
I would be here. This is Stephanie.
I'll be. This is Rachel. I'll be here.
And I'll be here as well.
This is Monica. I'll be around.
Okay, perfect. It sounds like we can leave it as scheduled. So thank you for checking your calendars, folks. And next on our agenda, we have an update on library access from Jeremy DeGator.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. My name is Jeremy DeGator. I'm a project manager for capital improvements here at the City of Flagstaff. And I see a hand just came up, so I'm going to pause there and see if that's something related to a previous item.
Thank you. That was a question about the last item. Are we not having an October meeting?
You know, we are going to have an October meeting as far as I know. This says November. Maybe that was a typo.
I was just wondering about that as I was going to item it on my calendar.
Yep, I just caught that too, Jamie. So the next time that we can meet in October would have been the 25th of October, which is the Tuesday before the end of the month. Does that date work for everyone?
Works for me.
That works for me.
That's fine.
Works for me.
Works
Yes.
for me too. That's Keith.
Okay, so we'll get that changed and get that updated.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Stephanie, for catching that. I was like, we're already progressing to November. Okay, so Jeremy, you have the floor again.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chair. Take number 2. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair. My name is Jeremy DeGator. I'm Capital Improvements Project Manager, here to give a brief update on the library ADA entrance project. As many of you will recall, as current commissioners, we reached out and did a lot of the planning work for this project with this commission and previous commissioners. We adopted very early on universal design or inclusivity as one of our guiding lights, and we are able to come up with a design that will convert the existing library entrance into one that is ADA compliant, but also holds fast to the inclusivity ideals by incorporating facilities that will be used by all people, and we'll encourage everyone to use the same facilities, incorporating gently sloping sidewalks as opposed to ramps. Moving forward. The construction contract was awarded by City Council back on July 5th to Schultz Contracting. Notice to proceed was issued August 8th. And the very first thing that we did was we found out that we had some additional work to do that was unanticipated related to our accessible route for our temporary parking facilities. So we have identified parking for the library in the City Hall lot, including 2 ADA spaces along Aspen Avenue near the Milligan House, We found out that we needed to bring all of those facilities into current ADA standards. And so working with our fine folks over in Public Works, we were able to add some work to their contractor who works on their street maintenance program. It delayed our project a couple of weeks, but we were able to rebuild 3 ramps, 2 curb ramps and one ramp right at the ADA spaces, and be able to allow us to close down the library entrance and move forward. We have currently been, for the last several weeks, we have been in the demolition phase. So if any of you have driven by or been in the area, you'll have noticed there's lots of noise and things have been getting torn apart. And we are quickly approaching the period where we start putting things back together. The project team, along with the artists and so on, have been taking a look at concrete samples. As many of you will recall, the walkways and so on are decorative concrete. So we've got some specialty finishes, some tactile strip that will be installed down the center. And so just working with the contractor to ensure that the mock-ups are reflective of our desires as far as what we want to see for our final project. We're hoping to get started with starting to put things back and actually start constructing this entrance early in October. At this point, we are very well aware that we have winter breathing down our neck at this point, and we will endeavor to get this library entrance reopened sometime this winter. We may not, a harsh reality is we may not be able to get all of the final finishing touches, so maybe the artwork or landscaping, irrigation, those sort of things may wait until spring to be completed, but we will be able to reopen the entrance at some point. Certainly when we finish the project, we do plan to have some kind of ribbon cutting ceremony, and we will coordinate with this commission to make sure that you're all invited to participate in that, as you have been integral, very important to the process as we have sought to redesign and reimagine this library entrance. And that's my update for today. I thank you all for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Is there any questions for Jeremy? Or any commentary for Jeremy? And Russ, you have the floor.
And really quickly, just as a former commission, Jeremy, we appreciate you reaching out to the commission for guidance. And then, of course, we were able to reach out to other folks, particularly at NAU, who have some more expertise regarding accessibility and inclusivity. But Jeremy, as a project manager, thank you for reaching out to the commission. We appreciate that.
Yes, Jeremy, I can't thank you enough. To tag on to what Russ said, it's really great that you included the commission in our input, and we've been a viable part of this project.
Thank you for participating as well.
Okay, our next item is agenda item number 10, reports, discussion items. Mr. David Wessel, City of Flagstaff Planning Manager, update on Stride Forward Metro plans to the Regional Transportation Plan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Again, David Wessel, I'm actually with Metro Plan. We are a regional organization of which the city is a member. I have a short presentation for you today, and so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and ask if you can see my presentation.
And we can.
Excellent. So as the chair mentioned, I would like to speak to you today about Stride Forward. That's our regional transportation plan. As I do that, I'm going to first tell you a little bit about who we are, a little bit about the plan. Changes since our last regional transportation plan. This is something we do every 5 years. Our look ahead to 2045, how we would make that happen, how we'd make things happen, and then see if there's any questions that you might have. So Metro Plan covers an area the same as Mountain Line Transit. So you can see Flagstaff there in the center. We go down to Kachina Village, Belmont to the west, north of the Peaks, and out to Winona. We are set to Our vision is to create the finest transportation system in the country and do that by leveraging cooperation from groups like you and from our partners and others to maximize financial and political resources. We have several members, as I mentioned, the City of Flagstaff, the county, NAU, ADOT, and Mountain Line. And we meet regularly to produce a number of things, but we are a planning organization. We see planning as important because it helps us to make those better choices about how to invest our resources. It also helps us think holistically, so we'll achieve ultimate goals, not just immediate goals. So what is Stride Forward? What is our regional transportation plan? This is a plan we do every 5 years. It usually covers 20 to 25 years, and it describes how the region will invest our money within budget, within funds that we reasonably project to be available. So it's not just a wish list. And past plans, for your reference, have helped deliver important improvements. Back in 2000, we had the transportation tax helped bring on Mountain Line Transit, build many foot trails, and funded the 4th Street overpass, for example. You can learn more at our website, metroplanflg.org/strideforward. So what have we done on our regional transportation plan so far? We've looked at existing conditions. We've considered recent changes, which I'm going to cover momentarily. We have modeled future conditions to the best of our ability, and we're working to coordinate with other plans, such as the City and County General Plan, the Carbon Neutrality Plan, the Active Transportation Master Plan, and Flagstaff in Motion, which is Mountain Line's 5-year transit plan. And we've also spent a fair time out in the community, either at events, online surveys, random sample surveys, things of that nature. So what have we heard from that outreach? This is generalized. You can go to the website to see more details, but there is support for climate action. There's support for expanded transit service as well as pedestrian and bicycle modes. There are preferences stated for moderate density land use. And the more dense, the more mitigations needed, things like parks, open space, and access to transit. There were concerns for safety as a priority, for housing prices and gaps in our transportation system. Again, you can go to the website to learn more and actually see the results from the surveys. What's happened since the last plan was adopted in 2017? As you all know, a lot. COVID-19 probably first and foremost, and that has had a profound effect. Today's meeting, a good example of how we all travel or don't, the decisions that we make. There have been climate and housing emergencies declared by the City of Flagstaff. The hospital is planning to relocate. Inflation is making it much more challenging to deliver the projects we've put before voters. Projects like those in Propositions 419 and 420, and I'll explain that a little bit more. And then also the carbon neutrality plan has been adopted and is official city policy. And in fact, it's playing a central role in how we're doing Stride Forward. So as a reminder of what Proposition 419 includes, it's a streets and active transportation. This passed in November 2018. You can see the lines on the map where we're looking to do some widening and put in some new connections that create parallel routes to Milton and to I-40 and help with general connectivity, access to future housing opportunities, and access to jobs. 420 was a singular project, and that's the Lone Tree Overpass at the north end of Lone Tree Road, connecting Butler to Route 66. And it really completes that parallel route to Milton, which gives us that redundancy in the system, helping to balance traffic between those two facilities. Also helps us avoid train delays as train traffic starts to pick up again, as well as granting more access to emergency service. As I mentioned, the carbon neutrality plan was passed and plays a central role here. 40% of our greenhouse gases gas emissions come from gas-powered vehicles, the transportation sector. In that carbon neutrality plan, to address that, there's goals that we will travel the same number of miles traveled by cars 2019. By 2030, we'll be traveling no more. So collectively as a community, we all need to drive less. To do that, we need to shift our modes, walking, biking, taking the bus. The goal here by 2030 is that 54% of all those trips are taken by modes other than car. And for work trips, 34% of those trips are by bike, walking, or bus. That sounds fairly ambitious, but let's talk about that a little bit. We're going to use several terms. You've perhaps heard me refer to something close to vehicle miles of travel. We're going to use the acronym VMT. And you can see in these two little images to the side what that means. So in that little image on the bottom right, if one car travels 1 mile, that is 1 vehicle mile traveled, or 1 VMT. Easy math. If 4 vehicles travel 10 miles, that's 40 VMT. So if we look at this larger figure with a little individual in their house, and if they travel 2 miles to get coffee, and then 10 miles to work, and then 11 miles home, and 2 miles to go shopping, and then 3 miles to get gas, and 1 mile home, you add all those up, and that person has traveled 29 vehicle miles, assuming they take a car. And part of what we're looking to do is arrange things so people perhaps don't have to take a car. And this aspect is community design, another term we'll use. So you can see how in this little image, everything's laid out. Well, if we were just to be able to bring everything closer together, that's an element of community design, how things are arranged, and that would create shorter trips. Those shorter trips might make it easier to walk or bike, or perhaps take the bus. That would be the mode or travel mode by which you travel. But you might need transportation investments. You might need to build sidewalks or bike lanes, or maybe a bus lane, so that these other travel modes are actually available. And the last phrase I want to talk about is travel demand management. I may use the acronym TDM. And this is information and incentives and disincentives about traveling. So mentioned that, well, maybe we're building sidewalks. Well, if you've always avoided taking a walking trip because you knew a sidewalk was missing, but nobody ever told you that that sidewalk had been built, you may still not take a walking trip. And so part of TDM is really getting the news out about how the system's working, how to travel safely. Maybe there's prizes or competitions for walking or biking, working with employers and things of that nature. So those are the terms we'll be using. I mentioned travel modes, and a big part of the goals in the carbon neutrality plan is how do we shift modes from our single occupancy vehicles or cars in general to these other travel modes. And those are pretty ambitious goals, but there are other communities that are doing it, and so can we. So that goal again for work trips was 34%. And right now, before COVID, Flagstaff was around 14% of work trips being taken by walking, biking, or the bus. However, if we look at other Western mountain towns, Boulder, Corvallis, Missoula, and look at the kind of the best of the best in each of these categories, walking, biking, and taking the bus. There are those that are cheap, those add up to more than 40%. So they can do it, so can we. So we should be encouraged. So how do we set out about accomplishing this? Well, as I mentioned, we look out to 2045. We take population and employment projections and arrange them per current plans. And that's our onward scenario or onward plan. It maintains that status quo, those projects that were approved, the funding that goes with them, the land use plans that support them with some minor modifications. And when we model that, we find that by 2030, we're increasing that VMT or vehicle miles traveled by 460,000 miles per day. So we're exceeding the goal by that 460,000 miles. But we want to know, how can we achieve the goal? And that's the upward concept. So in upward, we shifted where people live and work in the future. That's that community design. We imagined increased investments in walking, biking, and transit. And to make those investments, we had no limit on the funding. And so that's going to be a big question. And when we did that, we were able to maintain those 2019 levels, or that 2.36 million miles per day. So I want to unpack the upward concept for you a little bit. And before I do that, I should mention that when we look at those population and jobs, they're expected to increase by about 20% by 2045. And we're talking for the carbon neutrality plan about 2030. So not even halfway there in terms of time. So when we applied the strategies and the terms that we used to reduce vehicle miles of travel, we concentrated where people lived and work in the future, and that brought things down to 85,000 miles. When we increased those investments, that brought it down another 183,000 miles. And when we finally applied travel demand management, that brought it down another 207,000 miles for a total of 475,000 miles, more than that goal that we're achieving looking to achieve of 460,000. So we can get there, but it's not easy. It's very ambitious. So let's look at each of these. Community design, where we live and work. We shifted 50% of new jobs and residents to these focus areas you see on the screen, downtown and 4th Street, and left the other 50% of that projected growth where it's currently planned to occur. We looked at other levels of shifts and other places of shifts and found that this 50% was perhaps the more effective. So as I mentioned in the early explanation, we get more people living and working closer. That's shorter trips, which equals less VMT, and it's easier to walk or bike, which is less VMT. And you can imagine transit connections between these two may be more effective and allow for less VMT as well. When we ran these model experiments, we found that the density shifts have relatively little effect. And if you remember from that previous slide, it was the smallest of the three things that we're attempting to do. And that's because we're really not talking about that much growth. If you think about, the expanse of the region and the idea that we're only going to increase that by 20% and it's going to be spread out, that 20% and then cut that in half by 2030, it's not much of a counterbalance to the existing patterns that we have. And so it doesn't have a great effect. But also in that evaluation, there's kind of sweet spot. When you concentrate that much growth, you're going to create congestion, and people who drive may say, it's longer but faster to take a different route. And so you might actually create more VMT if you create too much congestion. Similarly, people like choice, and the more things are concentrated, the more choices are present. And so people may actually choose to take a longer trip to go there because of those choices, that gravity of those areas, versus maybe something that's closer to them, but not as attractive. So one of the things we're going to be doing with our upward concept is informing the city and county regional plan. And these are some of the things that we'll want to further evaluate with them. So the investments in other modes of transportation, looking at increasing frequency of transit, the number of routes or services to areas that aren't currently served, the number of stops, all to make it easier. And of course, to get to transit, you need walking and biking. And we'd be investing in bike lanes and trails with more connections, system completeness, and road crossings for bicycles. Very similar for pedestrian investments, more sidewalks and paths with those same, increase in connections, completing systems so there's not gaps so you can go places, and making it safer to cross the street as well as more convenient. You can see here a series of images, kind of good, better, and best, where you have maybe a rapid flashing beacon, a full signal, or then maybe you just take people all the way out of the traffic stream, up and over a road or under a road, to make it more safe and convenient. So these are the kind of investments that we want to make, and we'll be talking about just how many in a moment. For TDM, or travel demand management, work from home is an important component. However, COVID happened, and things like Zoom meetings and working from home has happened. And we think there's about a 3% reduction in VMT that has resulted from our changed behaviors related to COVID. And that's a factor of a couple things. About 30% of jobs in Coconino County is estimated to be able to be worked from home. A lot of people are coming in, aren't working from home all the time, so just some of the time. And then about 16% of all VMT is actually work trips. So you start combining those things and the overall impact is reduced. However, a strong TDM program, working with employers, working with individuals, to set policies that allow more work from home, can amplify that and make it more effective. And speaking of travel demand management, it is really about informing people of more choices and informing them of those choices. And so here's a list of things that communities can do. Put in more bike and pedestrian amenities, not just the trails, but maybe shade structures or repair stations, bike and scooter share programs or car share programs, including parking advantages for people who are sharing cars. We have transit passes, but those could be ramped up, and you see others. Ride share and parking is on the disincentive side. And so our working assumption is that we would do these things and we do them all well to get that level of reduction. So in order to do this, and for upward, these are recommendations to the city and the county and others. If you want to pursue this, here's some policy changes that you might make, some changes that you need to make. Some are policy, the way we do business, and some are about money, where we spend and invest. So what are some of these policies and why do they matter? If you want those different outcomes, you need different guidance and different rules. So from a community design perspective, this would mean, similar to those focus areas, we're expanding those areas that are going to be urban and the intensity of those areas, and we're creating more connections in terms of connections to by bike and by ped and even by cars to create shorter trips. From a transportation perspective, we would be reducing advantages for cars, increasing advantages for bikes, bus, and walking through our investments and through our travel demand management. You see a big check there under travel demand management, and that's about those things that I just mentioned. And there's a check there because Metro Plan has received formula funds from the federal government And we are going to hire a TDM coordinator to start getting these things off the ground. On the cost side, it is very ambitious through 2030. It's going to take a lot of money. For transit, we estimate that you need to double transit service. So this is frequency, more buses on the road more often. It's currently 12.5 million, so that cost would go up to $25 million per year. For bike and peds, this is about facilities, so those capital improvements. Prop 419 approved 29 million for that 20-year period of the tax, and the city is working to front load a lot of that to their credit, in part because of the carbon neutrality plan. But we would need, through 2030, since that's the carbon neutrality plan goal, an additional 53 million a year to quadruple those bike and pedestrian facilities, making many more connections, completing systems, looking at those over and underpasses, which are quite expensive. And this is really, I know many of you are familiar with the Active Transportation Master Plan. This is taking that into consideration and then really ramping that up. That ATMP, that plan is going to close a lot of gaps in the system, but it's, doing even more and doing it faster. There's the check mark for travel to demand management, that grant of $160,000 a year. And then there are things that are undetermined at this point for community design, where maybe incentives for getting and regulations for getting people to and developers to invest more in these urban areas and create more urban style development, which helps with those shorter trips and mode shift. So what's next? We're going to finish our policy and strategy development. We have our virtual meetings for the public on the 3rd, the 6th, and the 8th of next week. You're all invited. Hope you'd be willing to attend. You can go to this website for more. Looking at tightening up those cost estimates. There's a pretty broad brush. And I know people will have questions about that. We're looking to tighten them up. We will do an accessibility evaluation by mode, by the network. So, how you would walk someplace, bike someplace, take the bus someplace, to various services like education, medical facilities, pharmacies, groceries, and look at that through an equity lens. Then we'll move into our adoption phase. In November, an executive board meeting will also be a virtual meeting where people can comment on a draft. And then the 16th of November, our technical advisory committee will meet and take action, and adoption by the executive board is scheduled for December 1st. If, God willing and the creek don't rise, as they say. So that concludes my presentation. I thank you for your time, and be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Dave. And I was wondering, could we get a copy of the PowerPoint sent to commissioners? Is that possible?
Absolutely. I'll share it with your liaison, and she can distribute it.
That would be fantastic. And do we have any questions for Dave?
I don't see anything in the chat, Jamie.
Okay, thank you, Lisa, for keeping an eye on that chat. And if you can, please attend these meetings. They're very important.
Right. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Dave.
You all take care.
You too. And with that, folks, in the interest of time, and because I don't want to short side our next item on the agenda, I was going to ask if we could table that agenda item until October, but move it up sooner on the agenda, if you will. And that would be looking at the accessibility of curb cuts, sidewalks for people with disabilities. So Lisa, would that be possible to have that be one of our main agenda items for October?
Yes, we can move it up.
That would
for
be
October.
fantastic. And again, I just didn't want to shortchange it. I want to give it the time that it deserves. And with that, I want to also say that if we have any additional items for the agenda, please contact myself or Lisa or Alan, and we can get those on the agenda for the next meeting as well as future meetings. And with that, I want to wish you a good month. Continue to stay safe and well. And we are officially adjourned, folks.
Thank you, Jamie. Take
Thank
care,
you,
everybody.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.